Dear students and my teacher friends, Namaskar. I welcome you to the presentation lecture on artificial kidney. Now here on the screen, as we can see, the girl patient is shown, and this girl is suffering from the kidney failure. Both the kidneys are not working, so you can understand in her body, in her blood, the amount of blood, the waste material is increasing in her blood, and this waste material, we know, the waste material is needed to be removed, but the kidneys are not working, kidneys are non-functional, so kidneys are not able to produce the urine properly. So now in this case, the girl, the patient, is attached with the artificial kidney for the removal of waste material from her blood. Okay, so here, just close to the patient, this is the artificial kidney is shown, and in this artificial kidney, the hemodialysis procedure is performed. So what is artificial kidney? Okay, so artificial kidney is a mechanical device, and this artificial kidney uses the principle of dialysis. And what is this dialysis principle? The principle is to remove or separate waste material which are present in the patient blood. Okay, so uh, now in the when in the patient's body the kidneys are failed, that time the process called hemodialysis is performed with the help of artificial kidney. Now this hemodialysis process removes waste material from the patient's blood, and by doing so, this technique saves patient's life. Okay, so hemodialysis can provide a reprieve from the death of the patient by removal of the waste materials. Okay, now let's discuss the principle of dialysis. Okay, so here in this figure, see what is hemodialysis. So hemodialysis is a treatment which cleans the blood. Okay, and this treatment is substitutingly working by non-functional kidney. So when the kidneys are failed, that time this procedure is performed, this treatment is performed on the patient. Okay, now the basic principle which is involved in this process of hemodialysis is known as dialysis principle. And in this dialysis principle, in this artificial kidney, in this dialyzing machine, what happened? Passive diffusion take place across a selective permeable membrane. So in the artificial kidney, patient's blood flows, and this blood is flowing in the artificial dialysis membrane. Now in this artificial dialysis membrane, pores are present, and these pores are large enough to permit diffusion of iron, nutrient, and organic waste. So from the pores, organic waste can pass, ions can pass, and nutrient can also pass. But the proteins which are present in the patient blood, they are larger in size, so they cannot diffuse, they cannot cross these pores. Okay. And uh, while the blood is flowing in the dialysis machine, that time the special dialysis fluid flows on the other side, that means on the outer side of the dialysis membrane. Now here in this figure, see, this is the patient's blood is shown, and here on right hand side dialysis fluid is shown, and between them this one is the artificial dialysis membrane. So here if you observe closely, you will find that there are many pores are present. See, this is the pore, this is the pore, this is the pore, so all these are pores. Okay. So from this pores you can see a small ion, they can diffuse. Okay. Then the organic waste material are also diffusing through these pores. Okay. So from the blood, organic waste material are removed and they are passing through this pore and they enter into the dialysis fluid. Okay. This is the basic principle of dialysis, okay, which take place inside the artificial kidney. Okay. Now the third point. So what is hemodialysis? See, hemodialysis is a procedure. Okay. So here we are remembering what is hemodialysis. Hemodialysis is a procedure for artificially cleaning the waste. Okay. So as the patient's kidney are failed and kidneys are not working, that time by the hemodialysis process waste materials are removed from the patient blood. Okay. And in this procedure of hemodialysis, uh, patient's blood is pumped from the radial artery to a dialysis machine, which is known as artificial kidney. And once the blood is clean, waste materials are removed and some nutrient molecules are added in the blood. After that, the clean and nutritive blood is returning to the patient's body by way of a vein. So through the vein, once again the blood enters, the clean blood, devoid of any kind of waste material. Now that blood enter into the patient's body through a vein. Okay. So here in the figure I am showing you the artificial kidney. Okay, this is the apparatus or the machine which is used in artificial kidney. See here, this is the patient, and both the kidneys are failed, and you can understand in the patient's body, in the patient's blood, the amount of waste material is increased. Okay. So as the kidneys are not working, the patient is attached with the artificial kidney. Okay. And this is the as you can see, this is the doctor who administered the entire procedure. Okay. Doctor take care of the entire hemodialysis procedure. So what exactly done in the hemodialysis process? So here you can see this is the patient's arm, they are showing patient's hand, and from the radial artery with this arrow you can understand the blood is entering into the artificial kidney or the dialysis machine. Okay. Now here you can see this is the blood pump, and thus this blood pump is pumping the blood into the dialyzing tube. Okay. this dialyzing tube are semi-permeable and these tubes are having pores. Okay, when when the blood is flowing in this dialyzing tubes, that time simultaneously, see, this is the small tub. Okay, and this chamber or the tub is filled with the dialysis fluid. So this dialysis fluid from this pipe, you can see, and here with the pipe you can see the flow meter. So this flow meter, with this flow meter the doctor can monitor the flow of the dialysing fluid in the machine. Okay, so around the dialysing tube, so inside the dialysing tube there is a patient blood is flowing, and outside there is a dialysing fluid. Okay, this is the setup for the hemodialysis procedure. Okay, and now the fourth point, see, so in the dialysis machine, the blood, as you can see, the blood flows through semi-permeable cellophane tube. So this tube, okay, this tube, all this tube, okay, is the semi-permeable cellophane tube, and from this tube patient blood, inside this tube patient blood is flowing. Okay, and this tube is surrounded by dialysis fluid. So outside the tube dialysis fluid is present. Okay, now from the patient's blood, urea, potassium and some other solute which are present in high concentration in patient blood, this urea, potassium and solute, they can diffuse from the patient blood and they enter into the dialysis fluid. Okay, so from the blood through the in the membrane there are the pores. Okay, so this membrane is acting as a semi-permeable membrane and which is having pores. So through these pores urea comes out, potassium comes out and some other solutes are coming out in the dialyzing fluid. Okay, and finally this dialyzing fluid which is having potassium, waste material, urea, okay, all this all this waste material through the dialysing fluid. So dialysing fluid is drained, it is discarded. Now when the blood is flowing in this tube, that time you can see over here the dialysing fluid is entering. Okay, and this dialysing fluid is running around this semi-permeable tubes. Now the team of doctor, what they do when they prepare dialysis fluid, they add glucose in the dialysis fluid, they add some vital electrolyte in the dialysis fluid, and they also add some drug or the medicine in the dialysis fluid. Okay, so you can understand from the dialysis fluid glucose, electrolyte and the drugs, they enter in the blood. So glucose, electrolyte and drug, they cross the semi permeable membrane, they cross the pores of the semi permeable membrane and they enter into the patient blood. Okay, because you can understand in the patient blood the amount of glucose, electrolyte is decreased. Okay, so that's why they are artificially provided to the patient. Okay, so this was the sixth point. Now one more problem people suffer when the kidney fail. Okay, so when the renal insufficiency is there, when the kidneys are not working properly, that time in the patient's body substantial amount of excess body water is present. So we can say the proportion or the amount of water in the patient body risen up. Okay, now this increasing level of water in the patient body is also problematic. So this dialysis principle, this hemodialysis process, this machine, artificial kidney, helps the patient to remove this excess water from the body. Okay, so artificial kidney removes excess water from the patient body, and patients, during dialysis, patients are typically given erythropoietin because as the patient kidneys are failed and they are not providing this EPO, so artificially during dialysis the EPO, erythropoietin, through the dialysis fluid, they are provided to the patient. Okay, so once again I am showing you this entire setup, okay, of artificial kidney. This is the machine. Now the eighth point we are discussing. See, hemodialysis patient typically have 3 sessions per week. Okay, so in a week, 3 times hemodialysis is performed on the patient, and the duration of one session is 4 to 8 hours. So the complete process of hemodialysis takes 4 to 8 hours, okay, per session. Now, in addition to inconvenience, so the patient who is on a hemodialysis, this patient are having a risk of infection, and patient is also having a threat of thrombosis. Now, one more problem in this procedure. See, we know when the human blood comes out from the body, it tend to clot. So when the blood is outside our body, it clots. Okay, so here same problem is occurring. So to avoid this blood clotting, anticoagulant is added to the blood. For example, heparin is used. Heparin is introduced in the patient blood. So when the blood is flowing in the dialyzing tube, that time blood is not going to clot, and blood will be in the form of flowing fluid, or the blood will be in a liquid form and it is not going to clot. So heparin is added, okay, against the blood clotting. Now this type of blood which is having heparin, when this blood introduced in the patient body, so that time some complication may occur. Patient may suffer from internal bleeding. Okay, so this was the ninth point of our discussion. Now here First, let me show you. This is the artificial kidney or the dialysis machine. See here, this was the first photograph, and this is the working mechanism of the artificial kidney. Okay, so here you can see dialysis chamber is shown, and in the dialysis chamber you see the dialyzing tube is there, and around that dialysis fluid is there, it is flowing. Now see here, this is the patient's hand, and you can see the artery and vein. So between the artery and vein, you can see they have fitted the shunt. Okay, so what is the shunt? Okay, so shunt is actually silicone rubber tube. So this is the shunt they are showing. This is the shunt, and what is the shunt? Shunt is actually silicone rubber tube, and this shunt are inserted. The shunts are, as you can see in the figure, shunts are inserted into a medium sized artery and vein, and the typical location, as we can see in the figure, typical location for the insertion of shunt in the artery and vein is the forearm. Sometimes a lower leg is also used. Now the two shunts are then connected. So here this is the shunt, this is the shunt, and the shunts are connected, and both the shunt they form a short circuit. So that does not impair the flow of blood. So with the use of shunt from the artery, uh, that means the flow of blood is maintained by using the shunt. Proper amount of blood all the time uh, entering in the artificial kidney, and once it is filtered, once it is clean in the machine artificial kidney, so that clean blood enters in the vein through the shunt. So the continuous supply of blood to the machine, that is the main function of the use of shunt. Okay, now this is also important thing that we need to remember. See, diffusion diffusion is taking place across the dialysis membrane. So the wall of dialysis tube is acting as a dialysis membrane. It is a semi-permeable membrane, and in this membrane pores are present. Okay, uh, and due to this diffusion, composition of the blood changes. So we can understand few molecules are leaving the blood, and new molecules or the ions are entering in the blood. So which are the material that leave the blood? Okay, so from the patient's blood, potassium ion, phosphate ion, sulfate ion, urea, creatine, and uric acid diffuse across the membrane into dialysis fluid. So from the blood, which are the component or the molecules are coming out? So from the blood, potassium ion come out, phosphate ion come out, sulfate ion come out, urea, creatine, and uric acid, that means all the waste material come out, and all this molecule and ion, they diffuse across the membrane, they cross the pores, and through the pores they enter in the dialysis fluid. Now when the patient is administered on this dialysis process, that time when the doctors are preparing the dialysis fluid, they add bicarbonate ion and glucose in the dialysis fluid. So what happened, you can understand, in the patient body, in the patient blood, there is a scarcity of bicarbonate ion and glucose. So artificially, the team of doctor, they add the glucose and bicarbonate ion in the dialysis fluid. So from the dialysis fluid, bicarbonate ion and glucose enter in the patient blood. So bicarbonate ion and glucose, they cross the semi-permeable membrane and they diffuse in the opposite direction and they enter in the blood. Okay. Now, so here we can understand the artificial kidney. In kidney, there is a glomerular filtration process. So now that process is performed by the artificial kidney. Okay. And here it is important that in the patient blood, all important metabolite remain as such. Okay. So while the dialysis is performed, that time the metabolites are not going to come out from the patient blood, and they are going to remove, they are going to remain in the patient blood. Okay. So that thing is also taken care, that the metabolite from the blood, they are not coming out. Okay. So with this we have completed the all the discussion of the theory points. One more figure I am showing you. This is also the setup of artificial kidney. Okay. And we have already seen this figure. Okay. Then this figure. Okay. So with this we have completed our discussion on artificial kidney hemodialysis procedure. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation lecture, and I also hope that this lecture will be helpful in your exam preparation and also in your studies. My name is Manish Kosti sir. I am from Ahmedabad, India. Bye bye. Namaste.